everything that happens is a mirror for what lesson I need to learn. There's external circumstances that are difficult and imperfect. We know this, we're going through one right now in COVID, right? But what may or may not be there is the suffering, right? I think it was Buddha, I forgot who it was, that said, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Let me give a couple examples of what this mirror looked like for me. For years and years and years, as I pursued this artistic path, I was in financial self-sabotage. I was like that because I had a lot of resistance towards getting a job and having a boss, and because I associated all those things with my dad as a young kid telling me what to do and telling me that I'm not good enough unless I do it this way, and I'm not good enough unless I become something he wants. Like the time I said I wanted to be an actor, and he said, acting? What is all this acting, pacting? We are South Indian, can only be engineers. Forget all this acting, pacting, bloody idiot. That is something I can thankfully joke about now. But it was really hard to go through for a while. I still have dealt with that traumatized, hurt child that was in reaction. So this child doesn't really want to get a job. And when he has a job, he likes to rebel against a boss that tells him to do anything, which is kind of the job of a boss. And so what would happen is it would be really hard for me to hold down a job, and I would keep getting fired. And when I got into an amazing film school and they told me what to do, I kind of got fired from the film school, if such a thing is possible. And I was in this perpetual state of self-sabotage and misery because I hadn't healed that part of me that believed I'm not good enough unless I change myself and succeed on external terms. So I'm going to keep attracting situations to me that make me right about not being good enough. And it's a cyclical thing. I had this job last year, 2019, at a big agency, okay? And when I got the job, it was in this divine flow and it was amazing and it felt like it was meant to be. And then I got in the job and it was like the most toxic place ever. I'm talking about a boss who flipped me off. I'm talking about favoritism. It was a bottom-feeding toxic environment. I was promised all these amazing things. In the first week, all those promises were broken. And so in the first 2 weeks, I almost got fired once and I almost quit once. And I was that close, that I could feel that inner child, that rebel, that wanted to rebel, that hurt child that was never heard, that was never seen, that was always told you're not good enough. When this external boss was doing that, I could feel that trigger and come up, and I was almost about to react in a way that I almost did, which is a metaphorical, F you, I don't need you, I can do whatever I want, leave. And then I took a breath, and I went home, and instead of reacting, I took deep breaths, and I felt all that pain, that not good enough, the insecurity, all that stuff. Those nasty feelings that I was avoiding, I started feeling them. And as I was feeling them, I just started contemplating on the question, why does this keep happening? Because why do I keep getting bosses and jobs and situations that seem really externally oppressive or toxic and controlling, and I could never make them last, I could never hold them down, and I end up with my nose cut off despite my face, and here I am poor, not feeling enough again. Why does this cycle keep repeating? The only common thread is me. What lesson am I not learning? By lashing out against bosses, I'm just avoiding this pain that actually wants to come out. But I'm doing the exact same thing. My dad never saw me, my dad never heard me, my dad never let me be who I am. These bosses are doing this, but I'm not hearing me. I'm not seeing me. I'm not feeling the feelings that are coming up. So I just sat and I felt. And then I started saying, okay, I want external freedom, nothing wrong with that. But first I need to figure out how to have inner freedom because I'm still very controlled. And I started realizing nobody on the outside can control me if I'm not doing that to myself. This doesn't excuse bad behavior, by the way, but that's their 50%. I can't control that. What am I here to learn? Because at the end of the day, this keeps repeating for me. So I started observing. Let me give you an example. I was working from home one day. I do the best when I'm working from home because there's nobody in my ear. I take my time with most things. I'm generally a slower person. I like to do a long yoga and meditation session. That's how I set my up for the day. But as I was doing yoga, I was breathing all of this guilt. And I was like, this is interesting. I'm just doing yoga. Why am I feeling all this guilt? I started noticing the voice in my head that was going, well, you really should be working right now. It's 10 o'clock. Why are you doing yoga? Your boss would be so disappointed. She's trusted you to work at home. You really should be doing this. Shoulding on myself. Whenever there's should, quick tip, that means you are guilting the hell out of yourself. I promise you it's not going to result in anything good. I didn't react like I know. Normally I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. And I go and I'm super unproductive and I'm in this mire of procrastination and just, bleh, like I just feel crap. Not acting from a place in that moment of authentic flow and joy of the work. I'm acting from a place of not wanting to feel the guilt and not wanting to put up with this authoritative, controlling, manipulative voice, reminiscent of my childhood, that is trying to control me. So in order to appease that voice, I'm like, wait, let me just go do it. But in my heart, I don't really want to do it because I'm being told what to do, which is what I hate. So I took a breath. I was like, wait a second. And I just let it be. I just observed it. For just a second, when I started observing the guilt, suddenly it's implicit that I'm not the guilt. I'm the one who observes the guilt. When I started observing the voice that said, you should be doing this, wait a second, I'm not the voice. I'm the one who notices the voice, right? This is not a new concept, this is just mindfulness. But when I started doing that, I go, wait a second. So if that's not me, and I'm just trying to guilt and control and manipulate myself, then what do I want? Right now, I just want to do yoga. That's it. So I just allowed that to be. It didn't go away necessarily, but I just allowed it to be. And I went through the process and I took my time in my speed, not being rushed by this voice any more than I was being rushed by any external force. It was a great experiment because that day at home, there is no external force. My boss wasn't there, my dad's not there, I didn't have a partner there, nobody was there. It was just my head. And then, let me tell you, a couple hours later, when I started my work day like at noon or something, suddenly I felt ready. And instantly, I got into a flow with the work. My boss calls me saying, we're about to lose this deal. I go, no, we're not. And I had one of the best work days of my life. And she was like, oh my God, you did so well. I allowed myself, to trust my own rhythms. I realized that I needed to learn the lessons at this job before I could move on. And I started asking, okay, well, I want freedom. That's my ultimate thing, right? Just to freedom to be myself, to act in the way I act, to be the way I am, completely me, and to be accepted. So how can I start accepting me and being me and having that inner freedom while in a very controlling and toxic environment? So I just started practicing little things. Sounds silly, but I just started imagining there was like this bubble around me when I worked. I stopped paying attention so much to what my boss said or what other people said. And I just started focusing on what I enjoyed, the work. I worked as a recruiter, so I got to help people get jobs. Kind of ironic. I was good at it. I started focusing on what I was good at. I would do little things, like when they had company meetings, everyone would sit and I would be the only one who stood, where I felt, it's not for anyone else really, but it was just, I'm in my own authority. I started looking at when my boss would really trigger me, what triggered it, and that tendency to want to lash out. I started being able to differentiate when I authentically need to stand up for myself and when it's okay not to fight this battle. Let me just work within. And it's really interesting because I started developing this sense of inner freedom and flow independent of a circumstance that would normally be conducive to that. I remember the coworkers I made friends with there, she was feeling so depressed. Everyone just was really depressed in that environment. And I said, I brought up famous author Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he's a Holocaust survivor who, in the death camps, he basically said, in order to survive, you had to learn how to find beauty. So if their dinner, and I'm paraphrasing here, was a rotting fish head in a dirty bowl of water, you have to learn to find beauty in that. And his whole premise of his book is, man can't usually be able to control what happens to them, but he can always control his response. So I would just tell myself when I was talking to her, well, if Viktor Frankl can do that, I can handle this boss and control my reactions here and learn what I need to learn. This happens to just be my lesson. Your lesson may be that you need to have better boundaries and communicate and speak up and potentially leave a toxic situation, whether that's a toxic relationship or a toxic job. That could be your lesson. Then you gotta look at that and honor that. Everything's about context and practice a little self-awareness around what are the situations that are repeating your life and what's the flavor of the pain and the trauma that keeps surfacing, right? So that's something you gotta look at individually, but this is just an example from my life. It got to a point where I felt I had made amazing progress, I'd learned the lessons, and suddenly it started getting really toxic. to a point where it didn't feel normal. And it felt like the universe is saying, great, now it's time for your next thing. When it was time and I wanted to create something, I had job after job after job, just opportunity just come my way. And the next job I got, so much freedom. It was completely opposite. Working with a close friend, being paid much more, financial freedom, freedom of time, working from home. They loved that I was an actor, supported me in that. They loved that I could be completely me. I felt a sense of belonging. What I noticed was it was the type of day job I always wanted to support me. Suddenly I was in this free environment. For the first time in forever, I feel stable. The external freedom in that other job only came after I learned how to create the internal freedom for myself in that last job. And that last job was just a reflection of the cage-like control and manipulation that I was subjecting myself to. All right, that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed this. Okay, that was learning from the mirror of life. Let's do some key takeaways. First takeaway, what is my life mirroring back to me right now? Is there a painful circumstance in your health, relationships, career, any area that keeps repeating? And then ask yourself, what is the circumstance trying to teach me? What am I unwilling to feel or look at, right? Because when you can understand what you're unwilling to feel or look at, you can understand why a certain circumstance keeps repeating to point you towards that avoidance, right? Then you can spend some time mindfully observing your thoughts and feelings. See what's going on. Are you shooting all over yourself, beating yourself up? What is going on? Take a few deep breaths and really pay attention to that. That will give you the clarity you need to go, oh, wait a second, that's happening, and then I am observing it. So then you can say, well, what do I want? Which brings me to my last point, trust yourself. Now, that's not just a vague suggestion. Trust yourself means trust that you can begin creating whatever it is you need, inner freedom, peace, self-love, right now, without that external circumstance changing. And when you can begin to do that, you are truly beginning to learn from the mirror, and the circumstance will eventually go away. That is what my experience has taught me. I would love to hear your thoughts, what I can learn from you, and what else I can help with. Any ideas, questions, please comment below, like, share, and I will see you soon.